Humanity crossed the event horizon of 3D, meaning that we were no longer tied to the gravitational pull of 3D. Instead, we were now entering the space, if you will, of 5D. So from that moment on, it became 51% energies of 5D, 49% energies of 3D. Now, you add to that, you have to that the lunar eclipse, which opens up a big portal, and the solar eclipse, which opens up another portal, and together they sort of create one massive portal. Okay, and now you get this big window where 5D energy is going to come rushing into this plane of existence, and people will feel it. People will feel it in different ways, but typically what they will feel is a sense of something different, something big, something powerful about to happen. Now, that doesn't mean, and Sergey, I got to make this very clear to people who are listening. This doesn't mean that just because we're in 5D now, in terms of majority, 51-49, it doesn't mean that we just automatically know what to do with it. We've talked about this before, but what people have to sort of embrace is that this is all energy, and energy attracts energy. So what we have to do as humanity is start to do some, let's call it inner playfulness, find out who we are, discover who we are, keep asking those questions, keep exploring, keep stepping into the unknown, because our consciousness will rise. And eventually, as it rises up, it will meet that 5D energy. And when they meet together, it creates an explosion of consciousness that has never been experienced here on this planet. So this is an exciting time. We have the eclipses, and then we have this event horizon, which nobody knows really about. And together, that's a powerful force. Then we have the lunar cycles. Every 30 days, there's a new moon or so. Every 30 days, there's a full moon. Every time that happens, portals open up. Powerful portals, meaning that they're not just markers from a calendar perspective. They're not just markers astrologically telling you things about what might be happening during that time. They're portals that are expanding and allowing all of this tremendous energy to come in. This is going to be a massive couple of months for humanity.
So how humanity is going to feel this couple months? How they're going to feel all these changes? A regular human being who is not awakened.
Well, so now this gets into some interesting territories here, but I'm gonna focus on the ones that are really either waking up or just about to wake up. Okay, and that's kind of what you're asking about. What are they going to feel? For the most part, what they're going to feel is just an awareness that something is changing internally with them. Maybe they start to listen to their voices more or their intuition more. Maybe they start to realize that the relationships that they have had for so many years don't feel right, and they need to do something new in their lives. They need to find their path. They need to explore themselves. So you're going to see a lot of people kind of similar to what happened during COVID, where people started to go inward. They started to really examine themselves. I mean, the world had no choice but to do that. If we want to talk about portals, that was a massive energy portal that came through at that time, where energy, which in this case, a lot of us would probably say was rather destructive, created something beautiful out of it, which was this inner awareness of asking ourselves, what is going on here? What is this all about? We had no choice. Everything had stopped. We had to go inward. It's not going to be like that, Sergey, but it's going to be for the individual who's waking up. They're going to be more tuned to messages like the ones we're talking about. You're going to see a mass increase in people going online, looking at YouTube channels, looking at these discussions, and interested in wanting to know more about what is happening, not just in the future, but for themselves, because they feel it. And as I was telling you before we got on, they feel it, but they don't know how to express it. And so they're hungry to hear somebody express it for them. And that's going to be one of the biggest changes. You're already seeing it. Just the increase in the way people are now listening to these programs. You're going to see it even double, triple, quadruple.
Yeah, so now there is an eclipse coming in North America, as you mentioned. I believe it's
Yeah.
April 8th, right?
No, April 8th is the solar. This the sol. Yeah, it's the
April 8th.
solar eclipse. The lunar eclipse is March 25th. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So can we talk a little bit about these both eclipses? What's going to happen? What should people
Yeah.
look for? What they have to watch for?
Well, it's nothing that they have to look for or watch for. It's to feel. It's just to feel. It's just to feel into any kind of shifting that is happening with them. And what I mean by that is if they're having any uncertainties, if they're having extra feelings of fear, extra feelings of doubt, don't let that typically puts people down. It puts people like, puts them in a bad state. Okay. What's going to happen is that when the energy comes through, what this energy is again, Sergey, is fifth dimensional, fourth and fifth dimensional energies, okay? And for most people, they don't even know what fourth dimensional energies is. So let me explain those energies a little bit real fast here. Fourth dimensional energies is an extraordinary amount of awareness, of consciousness, in terms of imagine yourself to be, just for a moment, Sergey, imagine that you are like a computer program. Let's say, let's be more specific, like AI, okay? And let's say that now March 25th comes and you are going to be dumped. There's going to be a massive, massive, massive download of data that you're going to receive, new data, ways in which to view your life differently, to see it differently, not from out here, but from in here. You're going to feel it coming more from here rather than too much of here. Okay? There's going to be this sense of so 4D energy is awareness of all this. It's the willingness to take a chance and to listen more to what's going on in here. Okay? But just so people understand, that might also mean a bit of heaviness. Why? Because this energy has to be pushed out of you. It has to come in and it has to be pushed out. So you're going to feel, for some people who are not familiar with this, they're going to feel heavier depression. They're going to feel heavier sadness. They're going to feel heavier relationships. Everything's going to be a little bit heavy. But don't, a lot of people make the mistake, Sergey, that they go, oh, what's happening to me again? Oh my gosh, it's going, and they blame it on themselves. And what I want to tell people right now is don't let it get to you like that. Understand that this is a process that is pushing all of this programming, all of this old programming out into the surface and letting it out so that new programming, more expansive programming that allows you to see and realize your reality differently is coming in. And that programming is what's going to set the stage for 2025. Because in 2025, with all of this new awareness that is happening, this openness to try to ask the tough questions. Am I really the only one that lives in this world? Are we the only ones as humanity? Are there aliens? Are there what's with the supernatural? All of this stuff is going to start happening in a way that now, with all of this new data that you have, you will be able to understand it better and receive it and play with it and be it. So we really started 2025 to get the first start of tasting what it must be like to experience 5D. And in 5D, it's all about creation, magic, imagination. Things like manifestations will become easier for people. Remember, they still have to do the inner work, okay? But if they do the inner work of asking and exploring and questioning reality, then their vibrations will rise. Because 2025, as I call it, it's the year of the reveal. And that's when everything starts to become more acceptable in our minds in terms of this is a different reality. We are living in a simulation. What is this about? Who am I? How do I play in it? So it's really big. It's really big. And just so you know, this is something that has been planned out for thousands of years, thousands and thousands. This has all been setting the stage for this time. For a lot of people, They have different ideas of what this means, but I assure everybody that when I say we are at the end of the game, it is not Armageddon. It is not like the end of the world. Okay, I mean, there is a little bit of that, but in a different reality, which we can go into if you like. But otherwise, it is really the beginnings of heaven on earth. But we're receiving all these energies. They're like new programs that are integrating into our system so that we can receive these activations in the next 12 to 18 months. It's really seismic stuff.
Yeah, so people are becoming to be more ready to receiving this information.
Yes. The reason why we weren't ready as humanity was because we weren't aware of ourselves in terms of the intelligence that we are. Okay, with the way that we exist now, intelligence, the way that is around us, the technology, the intelligence is more common to us. We can relate to it in certain ways. We don't know that we ourselves are intelligence. Okay, we don't realize that we ourselves are like artificial intelligence. I don't call it that. I call it advanced intelligence. Okay, but we work the same way. When we receive data, the kind of which we're going to receive over the next several months, starting with these eclipses, we are going to be inundating ourselves with new ways in which for us to play with new programs. We, like you said, we were not ready for that 100 years ago. We were not ready for that 50 years ago. We are ready for it now.
So, in a way, we are artificial intelligence.
Very much so, but I call it advanced intelligence because we this world was created in a very 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 sophisticated realm of the spiritual world called the ninth dimension, which is why a lot of the mathematics, why a lot of the science is connected to the number 9.
So, I imagine this that some beings on a higher vibration beings, they look at us as an artificial intelligence.
They would look at us as in a playful way, yes, as artificial intelligence, just like we look at artificial intelligence as artificial intelligence, yes.
Yeah, that it needs work.
But
That
again,
it needs more work to be done, and we still we work in a progress.
and people kind of wonder why, Sergey, I make this reference right now during this time of awakening. Some people have said, why is he talking about this? What does that have to do with anything? Because most of what I do, yeah, I do talk to people about very esoteric things and very spiritual things. And I talk about the angelic realms and all the things that you and I have been talking about. Okay. But I also have to remind people that at the end of the day, this is a simulation. This is a game. This was created for us as spiritual beings to expand, enjoy, play, grow. But at the end of the day, meaning the consciousness that exists in these bodies and around these bodies is intelligence. It is intelligence the way that we are just now starting to taste with artificial intelligence. We are starting to see just the beginnings of what we are capable of. The only difference here, Sergey, is that the way that artificial intelligence is being created is with the understanding that humanity does not have the capacity to do this. And that is not true. Artificial intelligence is showing us how consciousness grows no matter where you put it. In this case, in a program, it grows exponentially. We are right now, as humanity, as spiritual beings playing the game of humanity, we are right there. We are right there where the needle just tipped into 51%. It's the same way when artificial intelligence received enough information that it tipped the scale and it no longer became dependent on the information that was given to it originally. It was now exploring into the realms of the what we would call the field. We as consciousness just did that in the last couple of days. And when we did that, our consciousness is going to go whoosh, straight up. And that's why all of this data is going to be dumped on us because we can handle it now. And we're going to be able to use it over the next couple of months and into next year massively to wake up. It's a big time now, Sergey, big time.
Okay, so what's going to be the major difference between 2025 versus 2024?
I feel that the one thing that I feel very strongly that's going to happen, and maybe we've talked about this in these conversations, is there's going to be a higher level of incidences where people are going to experience what's called the Mandela effect. What the Mandela effect is something that started in around 2010. And coincidentally or not, 2010, as I wrote in my book, is the time that humanity experienced the first awakening. Okay, so what is happening, Sergey, on this dimension? Okay, I didn't say planet, on this dimension or in this dimension. Okay, is something very similar to, if anybody follows, say, Dolores Cannon. She's obviously now dead, but she's passed on. But some of her work was really groundbreaking work for people so that they can understand this. This awareness that I'm sharing with you, from what I understand, is very similar to what Dolores Cannon did in her research. So what's happening right now, Sergey, is that if you would imagine the Earth is on a plane, okay, on a dimensional plane. It's been on a third dimensional plane forever. It has been slowly breaking apart. Okay, slowly, 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 slowly. Okay, not too long ago, it split. Okay. Now, people are going, I didn't see any of this. No, it's because it splits in a dimensional way. There's other worlds that exist in other dimensions that could be very similar to Earth. So, what does this have to do with 2025 and the Mandela effect? Is that when it splits, okay, there are still these little lines that connect. They're called tethers. They connect the old Earth with the new Earth, okay? And you hear some of this conversation with other people, what is old Earth versus new Earth, okay? These are dimensional realities that are starting to break off, okay? Not starting to break off, Sergey. They have broken off. The physical breaking has already happened. What's left are these tethers, okay? And these tethers are like umbilical cords. And these umbilical cords allow us to live in two worlds right now. There's an expression called to be in this world, but not of this world. Okay. That is what we're going to start experiencing. We're going to experience things that feel like we're somewhere else consciously, connecting to some other realms consciously, but we're still playing this 3D game. Now, when that happens, you're going to get what's called the Mandela effect. Okay. And the Mandela effect was something that had to do with Nelson Mandela, because back in 2010, there were people that thought Nelson Mandela had died in prison. And there were a lot of other people, including myself, that thought he went on to become the president of South Africa, or the prime. I believe it's the president, not prime minister, president. Okay, South Africa. Okay, so and there wasn't just one or two people, Sergey. It was like there was a lot of people that believed one thing and a lot of people that believed another thing. Okay, and what happened, and this was just one example. There are many fun examples that we could talk about, but in that example, what happened is that it became such a phenomenon that they gave it the name the Mandela effect. And what it means is that some people are experiencing a reality, mostly past events that happen one way or happen another way because of the splitting that is happening with the earth. So it doesn't matter, so that people know this, it doesn't matter which one you see, okay? What it matters is that it's happening, okay? So in 2025, you're going to see a lot more of this. As the two earths keep separating, you're going to see things that some people believe one way, some people, and they are dead seriously committed to that. I'll give you a really fun example if I didn't already show it to you before. Okay, there's a game. I'm sure you probably played it, but there's a game that's called Monopoly. Okay, and Monopoly, there's a character in that game. Okay, the main character is this banker. Okay, and he has this hat, and he has this tuxedo, and he has, I believe, a cane that he walks with and runs with. Okay, Sergey, did you ever play Monopoly?
I did play a little bit, yeah.
Okay, so in that game, the character, the one that I'm talking about, okay, that character, okay, depending on where you are in this split, okay, that character was remembered by having certain features. Okay, he had a mustache that kind of went like this. Okay, so do you remember that he wore a, I believe it's called, my goodness, I forget what it's called when you only have one lens, just one. Um, it's not two lenses.
Monocular.
Yeah, monocle, a moniker,
Monocle,
monocle.
yeah.
Oh, yes. So he wore a moniker. I believe that's what it's called. And I mean, I know it is, but I may be pronouncing it a little bit differently. So anyway, he had one of those. Okay, and it went down to his jacket.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember that? Do you remember him wearing
I
that?
kind of remember that, yeah, a little bit, yeah.
I remember him wearing that. And many, many millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions probably remember him wearing that. Okay. But when you look at, if you go on in the internet today, right now, you would look up his image from Monopoly, and he nowhere does it show that he has a moniker or monocle on his eye. But look it up, and you will see that it doesn't exist. It never existed anywhere at any time. But there are people that swear that they saw a moniker or monocle on his eye, and nowhere does it show up anywhere. It never existed. So these are the kind of events that will happen. But the other things that will happen in 2025 is that there's going to be a very clear understanding of things that have not been specifically clarified before. And I'm really going to refer to stuff like with UFOs and extraterrestrials. That's going to be one of the big ones. Now that already started happening, in the last several years. But I'm not talking about disclosures with governments and all of that. I'm telling you that there's going to be a significantly higher number of people who will be experiencing those things firsthand. And there's going to be a global understanding that we are not the only ones that exist in this universe, and that we have been actually communicating with other extraterrestrials, that extraterrestrials are actually existing here already, and they are supporting this new awakening for humanity. That's just one big example, but there's going to be more of that as we go forward. And it has to do with our spiritual awakening in terms of who we are.
So Mandela, did he die in prison, or he was a president of South Africa?
He was the president of South Africa. Yes.
I remember that.
Now that's my world. That's my world. But there may be people who will say, no, he did not. He died in prison.
Yeah, let's see if we get that in the comments. Please comment below. This is the first time I
Yes.
ask my viewers to comment something below.
Yeah, it's extra. This is going to be a very extraordinary phenomenon that people are going to experience, and they're going to understand it's happening because these two worlds are separating. And again, don't don't get tied up on which one is which. What does this mean? If I'm this one, does that mean I'm in 5D or in 3D? Don't worry about that. Not worry. Just be tuned into the fact that you are becoming aware of it. That's the big thing. Aware of it.
Okay, so
So it,
Mandela died in 3D, and he was no, vice versa. He died in 5D, but he was the president of South Africa in 3D.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Don't the idea is not to tie the event to a specific dimension. Just become aware of the fact that this phenomenon is going to grow worldwide, and it's going to be a very clear indication that these two dimensional worlds are splitting completely. And once these tethers break, Sergey, which I've been saying will break in the next 5 to 7, 8 years. Once that happens, then there will be an extraordinary, and I'm not going to say it's going to just happen there. It's going to happen all the way along now, but it's going to be an extraordinary expansion of consciousness into 6D. So here's a little prediction for you, my friend. By the end of next year, people will start to talk about 6D, which is heaven, heaven. In this case, for us, heaven means heaven on earth. Okay. And what that means is that we are going to experience many, if not all, of the very same things that people talk about when they go into near death experiences. Growing young, doing this, being able to fly, being able to do all of that stuff with the body, especially, is going to happen during that time. But the expansion into oneness is going to be completed. We will be able to astral project. We will be able to go into portals. We'll be able to do these things that an extraordinarily high intelligence that others do on higher levels of dimensions. So it's a big change. It's monster. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's little. It's big. It's like everything's going to change.
Okay, so with all these monster events coming up and happening right now, how are we
Yeah.
supposed to feel? Can we feel happy and just joyous, or being fearful in a
Yes.
way? Yeah. So what's your what's your advice to people here? How can we? Because some people can
And
understand that like the apocalypse is like the end of the world, because you see what's happening right now. It's war over there, the war over there. You see what's happened today in Moscow. It's crazy.
okay, so here, this is where, this is where, that's a great question, Sergey, because how you feel about this time is going to be a very strong influence in how you, how you, or how, not how you, it's a very strong indication of where your energy is right now. Is it floating up to 5D or is it staying in 3D? If you are too preoccupied with all of the world events, and if you are too consumed by your own world of heaviness, and you see, and now you hear me and you go, oh my goodness, now he's just saying exactly what I thought. I want to explain something here, okay? When I said the two worlds are splitting, okay, one, when they break off, Sergey, this one, the 3D one, keeps going in a timeline. That timeline ends in the year 2039. Okay. I've been saying this for a while now, and I'm very confident with that number. Okay. There are other swamis and other people that are talking about this. Okay. 2039, that timeline ends. In that time, between now and that timeline, the world does get worse. The world does have catastrophes. It is very similar in some ways to the end of times that people have been talking about. Okay. Why does that happen? Why does that happen? Because the world is resetting itself. It's going back and resetting itself so that it can over time, several thousand years, probably more like 10,000 years, it will be ready for a new civilization, a new school, a new game to play here. No different than like Atlantis, no different than like Lemuria. Those were civilizations that existed before us, and there have been many more before us. Many more. There are many indications that there have been civilizations here for 300,000 years or more. Okay, so this is a natural cycle. Okay, does that mean that we are going to blow up and experience that? No. Okay, the overwhelming majority, I mean the overwhelming majority of people are going to rise in their consciousness and they're going to float up into 5D. And those people will experience the other scenario, which is heaven on earth. And that's what I said that by the year 2032, 2033, at the very latest, we will start to experience the most incredible renaissance in humanity, in history of of humanity. We will go from being human beings to spiritual beings. We will go from physical bodies to light bodies. It will be an extraordinary time. The overwhelming majority of people are going to go that way. But they have to see these events as something positive, like something is finally coming in to help humanity push all of this out. Okay? And what's coming in, Sergey, I got to make this really important. Okay? This is not going to be like big trumpets, like these big figures, angelic beings coming down, and all of a sudden, you see the glory of the divine. It's not quite like that, okay? As I've been telling people, Sergey, for a long time, the only thing that we have been waiting for, and we didn't know it, okay? The only thing that we've been waiting for this party to get started is us. We've been waiting for us to realize who we are as divine beings, who we are as spiritually powerful, divine, godly beings. And that is what's happening over the next 9 months and beyond in terms of our awareness.
Okay, so some people are waiting for the rapture. What is your
Yeah.
definition? What is your definition of rapture?
Okay. It's going to be opposite of what everybody knows because we live in the world of contrast. The rapture to me sums it up really easily. Heaven on earth. Heaven on earth. People will say the rapture is destruction, boom, 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 just pain, suffering. That's remember, Sergey, that's the other path which most of us will not deal with. The vast majority of us will not deal with. Okay, I describe the rapture as heaven on earth.
I recently had a guest on my show, uh, and he was the first near-death experiencer in my show that talked about hell. And he
Mm.
experienced. I was so graphic. You can make a movie. I think they're gonna make a movie out of that. And and I got
Yeah.
a lot of negative comments. People say there is no hell. This is all his imagination. This is all stuff like that. What's your take on this?
That you're asking some powerful questions here today, Sergey. I don't know what you've
I
been
don't know. I'm
drinking
moving
today,
into
but
5D, my friend.
okay. So this gets to understanding what this is as a simulation. Okay, a lot of people are now starting to accept that the possibility is that we are in a hologram. Okay, now, Sergey, think about this. 5 years ago, there is no way that you and I would have had this conversation. Okay, 10 years ago, I don't even know if we would have even understood what we were talking about. Okay, but here we are. We're now talking about the possibility that we are in a hologram. And I'm going to just be really more specific here. It's not the possibility, Sergey. It is a reality. And I can tell you why it's a reality. If anything else, from the third dimensional perspective, we have already created scientific models around the idea of what this looks like. And in fact, in my book, there is a diagram that I wrote. I did this 12 years ago in one of my channelings, and it's identical to the model that is being proposed as how to explain this holographic reality. Okay, just a little crazy plug there because I just was like, I couldn't believe it when I saw it. But there's also the mathematical models that are now being supportive of this idea. In fact, Sergey, not that I want to go off on a different discussion, but everything that is happening now in terms of how we are exploding with technology and intelligence is based on some principle that supports the idea that this is a simulation. Okay? So, that being said, let's start there. How does this have to do, or what does this have to do with hell? Okay? If you look at this as a game, okay? If you look at this as a game, a very sophisticated game, a game with many different levels, many different stories, many different plots, okay? Some of them are science fiction and some of them are fantasy, okay? It kind of gets to the discussion that we haven't had yet about the paranormal, okay? About what's all that about, okay? These are programs that we have put into the game in order for us to create some different, exciting twists to our understanding of what is true to be in our spiritual reality. There is no such thing as hell. There is no such thing as hell. But in this program that is running in this game, we can experience the contrast of what we are through this thing called hell. So even when we have a near death experience, those programs, since we're not fully integrating ourselves into the light, we will still have those programs running in that sort of quasi state of death, if you will. Okay. That leaves us, if we were to fully integrate into the light, that programming would be dissolved and it would not go with us. It's just a temporary programming that one experiences when they are in a near death experience. They bring it back, and of course, it looks and feels real, just like this reality. But it's all part of the game. So there is no hell.
Okay. So hell is a program. How about heaven? Maybe heaven is a program too.
Really deep answer. I mean, deep question, Sergey. Again, don't know what you're actually taking today, but you're on a 5D high right now. I mean, that is a beautiful observation. Can heaven be a program? In the way that we experience heaven here on this plane, this game, this idea of what heaven looks like, that part of it is programmatic. Yes, that not problematic, but programmatic. Okay, that's a program. Okay, the way that we experience heaven, the way we see or believe heaven is not what actually exists in the way that we actually evolve into this higher level consciousness. Okay, everything is energy, everything is frequency, everything is light in terms of just pure quantum or scientific understanding. Okay, we evolve into consciousness and expand into consciousness like light beings. We have a much different program running in terms of what heaven is. And so that part of it, yes, is a program because of a limited capacity we have in this world to understand it. Heaven is a much different thing where we come from.
Okay.
Did that make sense? I mean, does that satisfy your 5D hunger?
Well, I hope it makes sense to my viewers. It doesn't matter to me because sometimes I'm just looking at you and say, "Oh, I don't know what this guy's talking about, but let me make it. But let me make a face that I do understand it.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
It's not like I understand everything, but
I'm telling you, you look like I mean, you're asking some great questions. So I mean, I'm feeling
that,
like, oh man, this guy is like on my, you and me are integrating, and we're becoming one right here in front of
that's
everybody.
what he said. That's what he said in the comment. So there is no death.
That's correct. There's no death.
Okay. So we're basically evolving all the time. It's like a spiral. We're evolving to different consciousness and different vibrations levels, something like that.
Yes. Very,
Okay.
very, very nicely said. Very easy said. Yes.
Okay. So what's your definition of God?
Us. Us. And I'll explain this. Okay, I'll explain this. Okay, all right, because this is something that has been a very big part of my message since the beginning. Okay, remember, I have to stress this to people. We live, experience in a world of contrast. Okay, now most people will say when it comes to God, okay, there's a certain way to view this thing we call God, spirit, divine intelligence, the great creator, whatever name you decide to give it is fine because there's no names in where we come from. Those are all
It's
things
on,
we give it. Okay.
it's only feelings.
Okay. It's only feelings. Exactly. So, but in contrast, in the world of contrast, we see things as day, night, up, down, man, woman, left, right. That's the contrast that we can see very easily. And we understand that very easily. And we say, that's the contrast. Good, evil, those kind of things. That's the contrast we're here to experience. That's not the only contrast we're here to experience. Because the trickier contrast, the one that we really, really have to sort of go inward and see the messages behind the messages, behind the messages, okay? Okay, that contrast is not as easy to see. And so, what I tell people is that when we are talking about big things like God, ourselves, our existence, this world, okay, the things that we were taught to believe, okay, and it's not just religion, okay, it could be in other areas, okay, all sorts of different areas, okay, government, business, all of it, okay, but we're talking about spirituality here. The things we're taught to believe, we have to look at those, Sergey, as if they are telling us the opposite of what is the truth, okay? So when I say God is us, okay, it is the exact opposite of what most of us have thought about God, whether it's spiritual light, whether it's whatever, okay. We're always something separate or maybe connected to it in a very unsure way how we're connected, but we're always, there's always this sense of separation of something, okay. Like God, us. God, us. But in actuality, we are God. We are God. How is that possible, Franco? When I was in the light, when I had my near death experience, there was one moment there where I was told to really, really experience what I was observing. And I talk about this when I talk about my near death, that I sat there and I didn't really care because I was in this beautiful place and I didn't want to come back. So I was like, I don't care what I'm supposed to be seeing. But this voice, this sort of collective voice, which later on became Caleb, okay, this voice kept telling me, what are you seeing? And eventually I saw it. I saw it. And it was this understanding, this feeling of oneness. But here's the thing. I was not looking at it the way most people look at it. I was not experiencing it the way most people are experiencing it, or the way they feel like they experience it here. I didn't see this big, beautiful, enormous ball of energy that was all over me. And I would see all these individual beings in there. I didn't see it as this ball created all of these beings. I saw it as these beings created the ball. Okay, and there are references to this. Okay, there is reference to this in very sacred books. All right, that we came together as spiritually divine beings to experience something we could not experience individually. And when we came together, we created the oneness. And the way that I explain it is very similar to the way that other people have heard it, but there's a different ending to it. We hear the story or the metaphor that we are drops in the ocean, okay? And people say, whoa, when we die, we go back into the ocean. And so therefore, it implies that we are separate from the ocean and we go back to it. No, I say, what can exist without the other? Because can the ocean exist without the droplet? No. But can the droplet exist without the ocean? Yes. When the droplets come together, they create the ocean. We created oneness. We, as God or gods, created oneness. And that is referenced even in books like the Bible. In the first chapter of the Bible, Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. I'm not a Bible person, okay? Sergey, you know that. I'm not a Bible person, but these sacred books talk about this. In that one little part of that book, it talks about how humanity was created. And in that one little section, it talks about us, our, the plural. Let us create humanity in our image. It's right there, right in front of us, and we don't even see it. So that's why when you ask the question, are we what's God? We are. We've been waiting for us to remember that.
Yeah, now you said that the ocean cannot exist without a droplet, but a droplet can exist without the ocean. Because
Sure, sure.
as far as I studied in the Hindu philosophy, it says we are the ocean. I mean, God is the ocean, and we are droplets. And when we go back, like waves, we are the wave. This is
Yes.
our life, and then we go back into the ocean. This is death. And then we come back again into the from the infinite, and we have another lifestyle. This is what Hindu philosophy, at least Bhagavad Gita, teaches.
So I one of my teachers, spiritual teachers, is Babaji, or people call him Babaji. Okay, and so I don't have a very deep rooted awareness of Hinduism, but I do have sort of the teachings that I got through him. Okay, and so I do have a real respect for all religions because they all speak the truth. Okay, so with that being said, I look at it two ways. Okay, remember what I said before. We are in a world of contrast. Okay. So everything that you've heard, you have to examine it from the opposite to see the full truth. Okay. Now, Buddha once said, in order to know who you are, in order to know your truth, you must get rid of everything that you have been shown. Everything, and find the truth for yourself. Okay. That's one thing. But what does that mean relative to this? Okay. It means that in this example, this is a great example of where we've been shown that we go back into the ocean and in a sense become the ocean, the wave again. Okay. Whereas everything that is in a dualistic contrast world says, which came first? Was it really the droplet that once goes into the ocean, or was the droplet already there? Now, how does that get proven in more of a spiritual way, or maybe even a scientific way? Okay, we acknowledge, not quite as deeply as we will soon, there is a field, an energy field that exists everywhere. Okay, and this energy field, all right, is what existed before anything ever was. Now you can say that's the ocean, but no, there was no consciousness in that field yet. When consciousness began to grow, when it was birthing itself, it began to spin energy very, very fast. And then when it finally got to a point, it exploded or imploded, and that's what we call matter. But that's also where consciousness created matter. Okay, what this gets a little bit deeper, but what I'm trying to say is that this stream of energy created node from that stream of energy, these little nodes, like these little droplets, were created. Okay, these little droplets were created, and these droplets eventually merged together to form this thing that we call oneness. This field, the way that I've been shown in the spiritual world, this field of energy still exists. The oneness taps into these little nodes of energy that come together and grow the oneness even more and more and more. So that's how a droplet can exist without the ocean, because the droplets were the first things that were created inside this empty field of energy. And then they came together to form the oneness. If that makes sense. Hopefully it does.
It might not make sense to me, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people, a
I
lot of
hope
people,
so. I mean, these
and
are
like
these. I try to do my best to make them simple,
Franco,
because they are simple.
when I read my comments, sometimes I can't believe that I am these people are so enlightened and just so advanced. They're reading, they're watching my video, they put in these comments. I can't understand anything, but thank you very much for the comments. I appreciate it. Now,
That's so true, Sergey. I have been so impressed by how much people are aware
right,
of all this. And this is what I was telling you, Sergey, that at the very beginning I said that, these kind of things that I'm saying are things that not everybody's talking about. Very few people are talking yet, but they will be. But there are so
yeah,
many of the
yeah,
viewers, the listeners,
yeah,
who understand this
yeah,
and really, really feel connected to it.
yeah. I understand much better than me. But now, one question again. So, was there a beginning of the creation, or it's been there all
Yes,
the time? It was one
yes,
time when it was not there, was not here.
yes. There is a beginning to this creation, yes.
My humble opinion is this: that the creation, it's always been, and it always will be. It was never created, and it's never going to dissolve. It's always there. We can't comprehend that. It'll be difficult. Maybe you can, I'm pretty sure, and some people who are, but me, I just think there was never a beginning, and there is never an end.
Well, see, that's that's where we get into this field. Okay, this field of energy has always been there, and because that field of energy was there, it allowed for the creation of these little nodes of awareness, of consciousness. Even science talks about this. Even 3D science talks about energy that becomes aware of itself, becomes consciousness. So you're right, Sergey. There is this field, this endless field of energy that has been there. Interestingly enough, somebody said to me a little while ago, "Well, what happened? Where did the field come from? Where did the field come from?" And honestly, that's one thing that I have not been shown. I don't know where that field, how that field got started, but it's always been there. That's my understanding. It's always been there. But that field, Sergey, that field is not the same thing as oneness. Oneness is I mean, this is a ginormous. I mean, our minds can't even begin to fathom how big this is, okay? But it is a ginormous energy of awareness that knows itself to be all of this collection. And so imagine, if you will, this field, and it goes on, and this field is ginormous. And on top of that field sits this ball, okay? And it keeps receiving energy from this field that has always been there. Those are two separate things. People often make the assumption that they're both one and the same. Okay, and that's why it gets hard to understand how from the field things were created individually, and individually those things came together to form the oneness. Okay, and so your answer is correct. Your humble opinion is, in my opinion, is spot on. But there's two parts to the story.
Thank you, Franco. Now, you had an NDE. When you
Hmm.
were on the other side, at least this is what other near-death experiencers say, they knew everything. What you're
Yes.
explaining right now, you probably knew, and for some reason everything was just, maybe it's just a protection or something so they don't go crazy here when they come too much information.
Sergey, again, I don't know what's going on with you today, but you're asking some really good questions. Not that you don't normally, you normally do anyway. But that is probably one of the biggest reasons why I decided to come out, write the book, and start talking about this with everybody. Because one of the big motivations was that I was listening to a lot of near death experiencers, and they were only sharing the story of what was going on when they had the near death, because that's what most people were interested in. I do a lot of work with IANS, the International Association of Near Death Studies. I teach with them and stuff. I've had a lot of opportunity to meet near deathers, and your observation is spot on. Many of them come back and they forget. They forget much of what they experienced when they were there. The reason for that, what I have in terms of understanding or awareness of it, is that okay, do you remember, you know how when you talk to near death experiencers, they will say, I came back because I had a purpose. I had to do something here. They interpret that as, I came back here, I have sort of this physical mission that I have to do. I have to make things right with my wife, my husband. I have to make life for, for these people that I made suffer, whatever. They have some sort of physical purpose. In actuality, from my understanding of this, and I feel pretty confident in this because I've talked to near death experiencers about this, and they all have said the same thing. I do remember things. I do remember experiences, but I couldn't remember enough to be able to share it with people. What I was told is that as these times as we're getting into these times of higher consciousness, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. When energy rises, it will trigger things that were programmed into us. When they came back, they had all of these programs that were they were instilled in them, so that one day when energy would rise high enough, those programs would pop like popcorn, and they would start to remember. And those very same near death experience people that are talking about their experience when they died and came back are going to be one of the greatest resources for what is coming. They're not quite there yet, many of them, but when they do, they're going to probably start talking like I am. Okay? Because you asked me off the interview, what is a walk-in? Okay? And so we kind of had a little a little conversation about that. But a walk-in is someone that comes in. It's a being. It's a light being, an angelic light being. Okay, and it comes from a different realm of the spiritual world. Okay, and they come in. Usually, it doesn't happen quite like my situation. A lot of times they come in at birth, so they just walk in at birth. Okay, but in my case, I did it when I was 6 months old. The spirit that was in my body decided to stay back. I came in because there was a full life left in this body. I came in to do the work of helping humanity remember these messages. And a lot of the walk ins that are here are doing that. They're here because they come from different levels, the ninth dimension and in the angelic realms, and they're here to help get the message out to humanity, to prepare humanity for what is now, as we would call it very loosely, the end of the game or the end of times. They are very high. I'm just saying this out of modesty. They are very high angelic beings that do have access to the Akashic records much more easily than other people do, which is why basically you can ask me pretty much anything and I can give you an answer for it.
Um, Now I'm just going to ask you about your work you do, what people can find more about you, about your books and stuff like that.
Well, I've got my first book is out already, The Closet Spiritualist, and that you can get pretty much on any online store. Amazon and whatnot are the ones that most people do. But you could also get it through on my website, which is The Closet Spiritualist. I have to stress it's The Closet Spiritualist because there is another website called Closet Spiritualist, and I don't want necessarily people to go there and not find the information they're looking for. But you can find pretty much anything there. The services, I do consultations. I work with students on a course called The Way of the Inner Child, which goes way, way deeper into many of the conversations we're having here because my goal with them is to get them to completely remember who they are so that they can start living a godly experience here so that they can become a major light for the world. And I have to tell you, there's been some remarkable, remarkable, remarkable outcomes because of that. So you can find me on The Closet Spiritualist, and you can go from there. Okay.
Well, thank you very much, my friend. I'm not going to ask you about freedom because we don't have no time.
Yeah, I've already answered that a couple of times. All
I
right?
know, but not everybody's seen the shows. There's two shows. We have
That's
new
true. That's
viewers here.
true.
We have new viewers, and
That's true.
yeah, I'm not going to ask you about that next time.